Good morning and welcome to today's live lesson. Today's lesson will be on global warming and climate change. We just want to have an overview of climate change and global warming. Your presenter today is Mr. Eric Osei-Asibey, a chemist. We've got 3 questions, as you can see on the screen. We've got a few minutes to go. I want you to answer those questions as far as you can. Thank you. Got 15 more seconds to go. Thank you. Time up. We'll have a look. We'll have a look at the answers. So the first one says, which of the following are greenhouse gases? And it says select 2 or more answers. So you can see I have selected 3 of them: carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. So it's not chlorine. It shifted a bit. It's carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. Those 3 in green. The second question was, write down any effects of climate change that you know. So I was looking for your general idea about what to think of climate change because it's a current issue and people are having a look at it. It's all over the press and there are a lot of people who are very passionate about it. So some of the effects of climate change can be a rise in sea level, storms, changes in rainfall pattern, rising temperatures, water stress, wildlife, and food production. The third question was, I wanted you to write down any key vocabulary or keywords that you think may be linked to this topic. And I gave you a hint over there. I did say that look at the images on screen and also the title of the lesson. So again, on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see images that I've put on there. There's one GIF. So again, you can see I've put 2 thermometers, which is indicating temperature, a rise in temperature. So those are one of the keywords that I'll be looking at. And then the second one, you can see gases being released. Again, it is not smoke, it's gases being released. I know some students will write down smoke is wrong. So again, the gases being released, which will affect climate. Our climate is what we call as the greenhouse gases. Those are what causes global warming. And of course, climate change is in the title, so you can write that down also. Global warming is also in the title, so that can become a key vocabulary. And again, on the screen, you can see there is rainfall, which I've indicated with an image also. So again, you can write down rainfall or changes in the pattern of rainfall. That's also correct. Storms, again, storms, the same image. You can see lightnings together with rainfall. So that gives you an idea about that may be a storm. Also, on the top right-hand corner of the photos, you see a GIF. So you can see the effect of a storm. When you have a lot of rainfall, then you can have all this amount of water in the city. Just below it, you can see some dry land, parched land, with a couple of people standing in there trying to collect a bit of water. This is because of the shortage of fresh water. And in science, we refer to this as water stress. Okay, so water stress, you can see I've written that also down as one of my key vocabulary or keywords, water stress. And just below the image for water stress is another image showing plantation. You can see plantation on a parched land. So if there's not enough rainfall, then it does affect food production. And that is why I included food production as one of the keywords. We'll be moving on to the next slide. And as I always say on these sessions, if you miss out, do not worry. This particular lesson will be available on the VLE for those of you who miss out, to be available on VLE for you to finish your green pen improvement. So what do we want to look at today? As I said, we want to look at global warming and climate change. We just want to have an overview of it. So we are going to just explore global warming and climate change. To explore means to go into a bit of details. So we'll look at what causes global warming, and then we'll look at climate change and its effects. Again, I've put down the key vocabulary for this lesson and our learning outcomes. First one is to describe global warming, and then we'll look at the potential effects of global climate change. Once we've had a look at the effects of global climate change, we'll look at the scale, the risk, and environmental implications of this global climate change. I'll give you about 30 seconds for those of you who are writing to write down the lesson title, lesson objective, and the keywords. Thank you. Thank you, sir. The first question is, what is global warming? So global warming is an increase in the average temperature at the Earth's surface. I'm using the word average because we do take the average temperature to be able to determine whether global warming is happening or not. And the next question is, what is the underlying evidence? What is the underlying evidence that global warming is happening? It's very simple. It's because when we measure the average temperature of the Earth, we can see that it is increasing gradually. In this case, the temperature of the Earth has increased by about 0.5 degrees in the last 30 years. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see an image which is continuously changing colors. Okay, so if you look at it carefully, it's continually changing colors from light blue all the way to dark red. Okay, so it is just an image to tell us how the temperature of the Earth has been changing. On the top corner of that same image, you can see the date changing continuously all the way down to 2016. So from 2002 to 2016, we can see that the temperature of the Earth has been increasing. The average temperature of the Earth has been increasing. Below that, I have got a graph here, and I've got a question for you to answer in your books. I want you to use this graph that you can see on screen to be able to describe the general trend in the global average temperature from 1850 to 2019. Okay, I'll give you 1 minute to do that. Thank you. We've got 30 seconds to describe the general trend in the global average temperature using the graph on the left-hand side. 10 seconds. Thank you. So when we talk about general trend, you can see that the clue is in the question. So the first one is saying describe. So it's expecting you to describe. And then the next one is talking about the general trend. And crucially, look at the number of marks that the examiner is giving to you. It says you're going to get 1 mark for this. So your answer is going to be very simple. You just have to tell the examiner that the global average temperature increases from 1850 to 2019. Because when you go back to the graph, it's telling you about the global average temperature from 1850 to 2019. And the blue line is showing you a 5-year running mean. And the red dot is showing you the annual mean. Now, if you look at the graph very carefully, if you look at my cursor, you can see the graph continues to go up and up from 1850 all the way down to 2019. So this is the trend that we can see, increase in average temperature from 1850 to 2019. You got about 10 more seconds to finish your work, your green pen improvements. Now, the question is, what has led to this increase in the Earth's temperature? So what has led to it? It is because of the increased amount of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Okay, increased amount of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. So example of greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide and methane. So you can see below it, it's an image showing that greenhouse gases are being released into the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases are being released into the atmosphere. So you can see this is a power station which is releasing a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And this has contributed to the increase in the Earth's surface. On the left-hand side, I've put just 2 animations to show that people do suffer from increase in temperature, especially when it's very hot in summer. People complain about the fact that my room has become very hot, I can't sleep very well. It's all due to temperature increasing. So the second one, you can see the little girl is trying to cool herself down using a fan. It's just to tell you that the temperature has increased. Okay, so how does global warming happen? How does global warming happen? I need you to listen very carefully because I'll be asking you a question at the end of this. So number 1, there are short wavelength radiation, okay, which passes from the sun through the gases in our atmosphere to reach the Earth's surface. So short wavelength radiation from the sun passes through our atmosphere to reach the Earth's surface. Okay, so that's which is reaching the Earth's surface, what we refer to as sunlight. Why is sunlight important? There are 2 main reasons why sunlight is important to us. First of all, is to provide energy, and secondly, to warm the Earth. So it tends to regulate the temperature on the Earth. So how does it happen? Number 1, short wavelength radiation from the sun passes through the gases in the atmosphere to reach the Earth's surface. Number 2, the Earth also gives off radiation. The Earth also gives off radiation. Some of the radiation energy, okay, in the long wavelength is reflected back into the space. It's reflected back into space. The radiation that is given off by the Earth is in the long wavelength. It's a long wavelength. Number 3, the greenhouse gases, as this long wavelength radiation is being given off by the Earth, the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere absorb this long wavelength. And when they absorb it, they re-radiate it in all directions, keeping the Earth warm and maintaining temperatures on the Earth. Now, I want us to go back and have a look at this animation that I've put on the left-hand side. Okay, so first of all, you can see the sunlight reaching the Earth. Again, it's going through the atmosphere. So the blue, light blue area, you can see the cursor, which is just around the Earth. You can all see the Earth here. is what we refer to as our atmosphere, and that is where the greenhouse gases are. Very important, you must remember that the short wavelengths are not absorbed by the greenhouse gases. Let me repeat, the short wavelengths coming from the sun are not absorbed by the greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, so they all reach our Earth. It is only when this radiation, okay, the Earth is reflecting radiation, and this radiation which is reflected by the Earth are the long wavelengths. Long wavelength has less energy. That is the energy, or that is the radiation that is absorbed by the greenhouse gases. And this is what is re-radiated back into our atmosphere, back into the Earth, and that is what makes the Earth very, very warm. And that's what causes what we call as global warming. Global warming, why? Because increase in the average temperature of the Earth. Now, with this in mind, I want you to answer this question. I've cut down the time because you got a nose on the screen. This is the question for you. Good luck. It says, describe how carbon dioxide helps to maintain temperatures on Earth. The examiner is talking about the fact that you score 3 points, so make sure that you write down 3 key things which relates this question so that you can score all the marks. You still got about 1 minute left. You got 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Thank you, your time is up. I wasn't expecting you to write everything on the screen for me. So the first thing you have to look at when you're answering this question is look at the key words that the examiner is using up here. So the first key word is describe. So the examiner is expecting you not to just put down 3 words, no, to write sentences to describe. Number 2, second thing the examiner mentioned was carbon dioxide. So you ask yourself, is carbon dioxide a greenhouse gas? Yes, it is. Okay, so it means that this question could have been describe how methane helps to maintain temperatures on the Earth, and you have the same answer. I'll put the answer down for you. So the first one is number 1, carbon dioxide allows short wavelength radiation to pass through. So that gives you a point, to pass through the atmosphere to reach the Earth's surface. That gives you another point. Then you need to tell the examiner that the Earth also gives off radiation, and this radiation is in the long wavelength. It's found in the long wavelength. Okay, this carbon dioxide would absorb this outgoing long wavelength radiation and crucially re-radiate it in all directions on Earth. So these are the 3 points that I'm expecting you to have written down. I'll give you 10 more seconds. Again, if you don't finish this, I'll make this available online for you, so you don't need to panic if you don't finish your green pen. Thank you. We come to climate change. So what is the major cause of climate change? Again, I've got a GIF animation on screen, and you can see color changing. So if you look at it carefully, it changes from amber, yellow, dark brown, and then dark red. So the redder it gets, the more red it gets, the higher the temperature. So the major cause of our climate change is because of increase in the average temperature. Okay, so it's because of the increase in average temperature on the Earth. Again, Some students tend to confuse this. Remember that global warming is not the same as climate change. Okay, global warming is an increase in the average global temperature or an increase in the average temperature on the earth. Climate change, however, is a cause of global warming. So climate change is happening because of global warming. The two things are different. You need to note that very carefully. So what are the potential effects or impacts of global climate change? I've put 7 pictures on screen. I've done number 2 for you. Number 2 is changes in rainfall pattern or rainfall. Okay, try and see how many of them you can do in the next 10 seconds, whether you can identify any of them. Thank you. I'll add 10 more seconds to the time for those of you who are still trying to make out what this one stands for. Thank you. I'll go through very quickly. So number 1, again, is rising temperature. You can see 2 thermometers there. So it's rising temperature. Number 2 was down for you. Number 3, we can see the sea, and you can see a bit of the city being submerged. So it's rising sea level. Number 4 is storms. Why is it storms? Because you can see the rainfall and the lightning at the same time. Number 5 is water stress. Water stress. I'll be coming down to that again. Number 6 is wildlife. So you can see the bear trying to hang on to a little bit of ice that is left on there. So you can see that the habitat of the wildlife is being destroyed. Number 7, we've talked about this. Those who did the starter will know that this is to do with food production. So global global climate change does affect food production. So the first thing is, again, I'm going through the pictures. So I'm going to go through a storyline here. So temperatures increase. Polar ice caps and glaciers melt. So that's the first one. As they melt into the sea. This will cause the sea level to rise. However, when the sea also gets warm, it causes the water to expand, and therefore the volume of water in the sea also increases. If this happens, sometimes you can have extreme weather, and that can lead to what we call as flooding. So the 2B is showing flooding. You can see all those cars flooded, and then you can see some of the houses over there also flooded. Okay, so again, when the sea level rises, what can happen is you can have what we call as erosion, especially at the coast. So coastal erosion. This picture shows you houses which are falling into the sea due to erosion. So all this are just because of the sea level rising. The last but not the least, okay, is cities like London and New York are also at a risk of tidal surge due to high sea levels. The third effect, so if you look at the first one, rising sea levels, the third effect can be storms. Okay, storms will become very frequent and severe due to more rain falling. Okay, however, there's mixed evidence as to whether the number of hurricanes is increasing or not. This is where scientists don't agree, the number of hurricanes increasing or not. Again, there can be changes in rainfall pattern. One part of the earth will be having more rainfall, whilst another part of the earth will be having less rainfall. Okay, so those who are closer to the equator would experience less rainfall, and that is why you can see what is happening here. Chopped ground. Again, water stress happening there, but more rainfall means there's more flooding, especially in the north of Europe. This is happening a lot in the north of Europe. Another effect of global climate change is rising temperature and water stress. So again, I've put a photo here of the Earth. So the blue means that there's no water stress there, where the dark brown stands for the highest water stress. Again, water stress is the shortage of fresh water. Why is it happening? It is the result of temperature and climate changes. So if temperature increases, there's less fresh water, and therefore that's what we refer to as water stress. Please remember that carefully, shortage of fresh water. There has been more droughts in regions near the equator. Water stress has led to freshwater shortage for three main things. Number one, humans. Number two, plants. And number three, animals. And because of this, food chains are being affected. Food chains are being affected because if one or two animals are missing the food chain, then the one level up wouldn't be able to get the food that it needs. Another thing that global climate change is affecting is wildlife. How does it affect wildlife? So if you look at the first picture here, some plants will flower earlier than is expected. Okay. Some birds lay their eggs too early. Animals come out of hibernation too early. So some species, just like the dragonfly, may migrate further north as temperature also rises. Number 5, you can see a polar bear on a tiny bit of ice trying to survive on that. Surrounding it is a lot of water or the seawater. Because of this, we are expecting the number of polar bears to fall because their habitats are being destroyed. If their habitats are being destroyed, they wouldn't have anywhere to live. And also, the amount of food that will be available to them will be also reduced. Food production is also affected by global climate change. So my question is, in what ways could changes in climate has a very significant impact on our food production? In what ways? I've put 2 images on screen which should help you to be able to answer this question. I'll give you 1.5 minutes to do this. Got 1 minute. I haven't taught this, but I think I've given an idea as I was going through the PowerPoint. And there are images on the left-hand side that may help you to answer this question too. Got 30 seconds to see what you can write down. Thank you. Thank you. I'll put the answers on the board. So number 1 is on there. It could affect the capacity of some regions to produce food. Okay, so that gives you 1 mark. Why would that happen? Because of changes in rainfall patterns. If there are changes in rainfall patterns, then you should expect droughts for those areas which are receiving less rainfall. For areas which are receiving more rainfall, you should expect flood. Okay, and higher temperatures also. And finally, the type and number of pests in the region. Remember, I did mention that the dragonfly, because of changes in temperature, may migrate north. So how you understand and answer these questions is based on how you link things. So capacity to produce food is affected. Why do you think that will happen? Temperatures are increasing. You get 1 tick for that. If temperatures are increasing, then it can cause the pest, the number and type of pests in the region to increase. or decrease. That gives them another mark. Hold on, what does vegetation need? They need rainfall. So if the rainfall patterns are changing, areas which receive less rainfall, there will be drought there, and areas which receive more rainfall, there will be flooding. This is the way you answer the question. This is the way you tune your brain to be able to remember all this. Okay. I want us to have very quick ones. In this particular retrieval practice, I'll put the question on the board, and for each question you have 10 seconds. I don't want you to write all the statements in your book. Just write down the letter that corresponds to the right answer. Sometimes I may ask you to choose more than one answer. If the answer is the A, just write A. If the answer is A and B, write A and B. Okay, I'll put the first question on. You got 10 seconds. Just put down the letter that corresponds to the right answer. Thank you. Global warming is having an impact on the Earth. What is happening in this image? So I've given you 4 images, and you can see what's happening. So the white bit does represent ice. Okay, ice. So you can see when you move from 1979 to 2011, the surface area of the ice, or the area that the ice covers, has drastically reduced. The second question comes up, and you got just 10 seconds to answer it. Just write down the right answer, please. Five more seconds. Sorry, I didn't set the time very well on this. So this is asking the radiation that passes through the atmospheric gases to reach the Earth's surface. The answer definitely is the short wavelength. So short wavelength. Let's look at the next one. 10 seconds. Thank you. So which radiation is absorbed by greenhouse gases given off by the Earth? Okay, that would be the one with less energy. So that would be the long wavelength radiation. Amazing. Let's look at the next question. So importance of sunlight: provides energy on Earth and maintains temperature. It doesn't provide water on Earth. That is wrong. So energy and maintaining temperature is correct. Well done. Well done to you. The next question. I will add 5 seconds to this. The question is a bit long. So what is the importance of the Antarctic ice sheet? Okay, and the answer is B, to reflect back the sun's energy and therefore help to regulate global temperatures. It is not a vital place for building cities, not at all. Okay, importance is not because we want the global sea level to increase. That's not important. So reflecting back the sun's energy. I'll add 5 seconds to this question. So the question is, what is water stress? Okay, again, we've talked about water stress: shortage of fresh water. That's the answer: shortage of fresh water. This question is very long, so you get 20 seconds to do it. Thank you. So there are 2 images here which shows drastic effects of climate change. One is affected by drought, the other one is affected by flooding. So our answer will be A and D. Okay, so because image 1 is showing drought, which is resulting in crop destruction, and image 2 is showing flooding, which is also resulting in crop destruction. B and C are wrong, so the answer is A and D. 15 seconds for this. I'll add 5 more seconds to this one. So 2 ways in which wildlife is affected by climate change is the animals may come out of hibernation too early and plants may flower too early. These are the 2 answers, A and C. Yes, thank you for taking part in today's lesson. I want you to keep working hard and stay safe. Enjoy your summer holidays and take a good rest, and in between try as much as possible to go through some of the things that you've been taught. But the most important thing is keep safe, stay alert. Thank you. Bye.